Hello again, everybody. Great to have you on board. We welcome you to Leadership America, creating champions of change through a culture of civility. My name is Scott Murray.
And I'm Angel Carlton. Leadership America is a people empowerment company. We provide leadership development solutions for those progressive thinking corporations and for communities and for classrooms, families, and individuals.
And we're delighted to welcome you today because we are going to share with you an interview that we did about a month and a half ago when the pandemic was at the height of what we thought was going to be the worst it could be, right? And now, even after that, it got a little worse. There was no sports. There was no, where do we go to school? Are the kids going to start in September? What's going to be taking place? Well, now some of that's all still up in the air, although sports, it looks like, is going to be returning and has returned.
Thank God.
We see Major League Baseball and whatever, yes, and football supposedly coming up, and we've seen soccer, we've seen NASCAR. NASCAR was at Texas Motor Speedway. So it's kind of nice to see all of that, and for someone that spent so many years in sports, I'm really plugging for the sports, just to watch it on TV, see some people maybe in the stands and what have you, but it's really been
cardboard
fun.
Cutouts.
Whatever works.
Right.
But I think right now all we really want is just peace and prosperity and get back to the way things used to be. And it's just the unknown that's so really tough every single day. Would you not agree?
We're progressing forward into our next normal. I don't know if it'll ever be back to the way it used to be.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right.
We've got to reinvent ourselves, and this
we
is a
do
great
need a vaccine
opportunity.
too, huh?
Yes.
Pretty soon?
Yes.
So we can get back to normal. Well, I tell you what, we had a chance to talk to two folks that really were just very, very special. Dr. Nina and a young man, Shannon, who played football at Louisville and then went on to TCU, and we'll hear his whole story. But it really has been great as they talk about all that we all continue to endure in the midst of this pandemic.
They had
I was
so
most
many
impressed.
insights, both of them, Shannon and Dr. Nina. I especially like what Dr. Nina had to say about whether you're a coach or a parent or a friend or a coworker, understanding and love. And is all it takes. If we can just be kind with understanding and love, that's how we create civility in our world. I mean, it was a great call to action.
Yeah.
It was
Patience.
a fantastic, they had some great insights throughout.
Kindness, courtesy, respect, patience. Understand we're all enduring this together.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at the interview that we did earlier this summer.
Thank you for having me on this show. I love it. I think it's great. It's a great topic and great things we can learn from this show, from all of us.
Well, we certainly hope so. It's great to have you here, and we're looking forward to all your expertise and any solutions you might want to share with us all. And who else do we have, Angel?
Absolutely. We're excited to have you, Dr. Nina, and we're also excited to talk with entrepreneur and former TCU football player, Shannon Brazzell. Shannon is the first football player in the Louisville, Texas ISD to get his jersey retired from the Fighting Farmers, and he was also inducted into the Ring of Honor at Louisville High School back in 2018. How cool is that?
That's very cool. Thank you very much.
Yes. He's a two-time all-conference linebacker in 2019. He's a Hall of Fame inductee at TCU. Also very cool. He's got a bachelor's degree in psychology. And today he's an entrepreneur. Shannon, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be able to talk about some hot topics. I tell you what, 2020 will definitely go down in history. No one will forget about 2020. There's a lot that has happened, and my goodness, I'm already ready for it to end.
Yes.
We're only halfway there.
It's been one heck of a year already.
Yeah, well, this is great. Welcome, both of you, and we're happy to have you with us, as Scott said. We're looking forward to having you sharing some perspectives and getting a really important conversation started here.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Well, thanks, Angel. Let's talk about Nina. Nina, we're going to be able to start with you. Can we call you Nina, or do we have to call you Doctor?
You can call me whatever you want. Nina works for me.
Well, I kid, because we're going to start with you, since you've got to be the smartest one among us, because you're the only one. Well, you're the only one of the four of us that has letters at the end of her name, specifically PhD. And so we're going to start with you. How's that sound? Tell us a little about the work that you do day to day, and then specifically with athletes day to day. And secondly, how your life has been during this pandemic, and how might it's what you used to focus on, and now what you're kind of focusing on.
Okay, well that's okay. So let me
We got like
say
3
what I do.
questions there. Yeah, go for it.
So I work with athletes, and I work with everybody in my private practice, just general population as well. And I do help athletes with their mental health and mental performance. How to stay present in the game. And right now, during the changes and having to stay at home, I have found telehealth counseling to be really effective. Honestly, what I have found with the young adults, it's almost safer and easier to talk because they're in their safe place at home and they're used to FaceTime and electronics. So I feel like the dialogue is very easy and natural. So it's been very effective, just being able to counsel at home, and then knowing that they can talk with me anywhere is a great asset as well. So I've enjoyed this process. I never expected to do telehealth counseling, but it's been different. But I think it's been a positive way to connect with people right now, as much as they need that connection.
It is positive, but is productive? I remember my dad used to tell me, whenever you're talking to somebody, you get close, you look them right in the eye, and you don't waver one way or the other. So now you're not doing that. You're in one place, they're in another. How about that?
Yeah, it's different. But like I said, I feel like there's still that connection, surprisingly. And I think it's more with the young adults. They're so used to that electronics and the FaceTime that they're very comfortable, and they're in their home or wherever they are comfortable at, versus the counseling office. Face-to-face can be very intimidating at times. So it's been a good experience so far that I've seen.
Yeah, it's really accelerated this telemedicine concept that was kind of in the making before the pandemic, and the pandemic just accelerated the whole thing and said, this is the way it's going to be moving forward. And why do we have to get in the car and go to the doctor anymore when we can do this? So this is just one example of the many changes that are happening in our world that we just can look back on and say, well, it'll never be the same again. And so, let's talk about sports, because everybody in the room today has been involved with sports one way or the other. And as a sports fan, I was more on the cheerleading side of sports, not as much as the team sports, but we haven't had it in months. And that's been really odd for me. I know the frustration being a fan and not being able to watch it on television or go see a game in person. It's been really frustrating and going through kind of withdrawals, like there's something missing from our lives, definitely. And that, on top of that, it's the emotional roller coaster that we experience on a day-to-day basis. And I like to think of myself as a pretty strong person who's got it all together, but there are days and that are just tougher than others, where the weight of the world really starts to get to you. And I think that's just kind of normal for a lot of people, but I could imagine for the athletes and the competition, the driven athletes, what it's been like for them and them being taken out of their team dynamic, so to speak. So I guess the question is, what are the concerns? What are the biggest concerns with the athletes and the coaches in the sports world today? And how are they best dealing with that? Nina, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, I think one of the things y'all mentioned is we don't know what the future holds right now. It's so unpredictable. We don't know if there's going to be another COVID outbreak and then suddenly we're all quarantined again. So there's a lot of what ifs that can cause so much anxiety for any athlete of all levels. There was a study done with 37,000 student athletes last month of their overall well-being, and 20% were just dealing with anxiety and depression, just the what ifs of the future, because that's what triggers anxiety, is the what ifs. So I think one of the things for all of us is how we can stay present in the moment and what do we have control over today. And I think for athletes to focus on the present and what action steps they can take today is really good for their mental health, because if they think of the future, that's where the anxiety is triggered, and that's where it can lead to much anxiety or depression.
Wow, what a great point. We're all stepping into the unknown. And It is scary. It is scary. So staying present is definitely helpful.
That's one thing. And I'm sure Shannon has some insight as well on that.
Well, I tell you from my standpoint, and you get it, but I'm now a fan, ex-athlete, but I'm a fan, and I'm going through the same thing. Like, who would have thought not having sports around, like that's just, nobody thinks of it. And so just staying positive. I know the coaches, just being on the board over at TCU and hearing the Del Connie, I'm not Del Connie, but the AD speak of the things that they're going through just to try to get us football. And so, and I commend those guys for doing so, but they're just basically trying to keep the guys sane, training as they can, doing whatever they're allowed to do. And from coaches, the same thing. Right now, you try to focus on one day at a time, basically. Mental thought right now, one day at a time. Hope things get better, and hope we're one step closer to a cure for all this, because the unknown is what's freaking everybody out. And right now, we don't know if we're going to have a football season at the end of the day.
Yes, one day at a time. And I noticed what's working for me in particular is at the end of the day, I want to look back and say, what did I accomplish today? Like what, I just want to make sure that I have something I felt productive at the end of the day in moving forward. And that helps. So we're making the most of every day.
Well, Angel, you brought up a good point, and something that can really help with anyone's mental health and athletes as well is at the end of every day, studies have found writing down what 3 things went well for you today. And why did they go well? Why did they go well? So you can reflect on the things that did go well. And they have found, even if you just do that for 7 days, it improves your overall well-being and feelings of happiness. So I encourage, everybody, including athletes, to do that, because it's really difficult with the negativity out there. And so many sad things that have happened is focusing on just 3 things right now that you did well today. And they can be very small, but there's something. And it just shifts how you think and see life.
Yeah, you can go to bed feeling a little bit more peaceful, absolutely. That's a great tip. And Shannon, you're talking about the lack of sports in the world, and, golf, the PGA Tour kicked off at Colonial Country Club for the first part of June. No fans. I mean, how weird was that? Not a fan in sight. And then you had NASCAR, which allowed, 1,000 fans?
Right.
Yeah, it was 1,000 fans down in Miami.
Right. And now the NBA is getting ready to tip off at the end of July, and the NHL expected to resume in August, and the NFL, like you said, I mean, who knows? There could what that's going to look like in the fall months. But I'm curious to know, Shannon, as a football player, you've been on the field, you've had the big crowds, and although you're no longer playing, how much do the fans impact your performance on the field? And how would not having fans change your experience as a player? What is
Well,
that?
I'll tell you, that's a good question. And I'm telling you, as a player, you practice hard to learn the game, to understand the game, but also knowing that you're going into Saturday individually to help your team win, to help your school's record, to help history when it comes to your school. And a big part of that, the hair raises up on your neck on Friday nights in the meetings in the hotel, because you have a sold-out arena, or it's packed, or you're playing Texas, or you're playing OU, and they're going to bring in fans, and it's going to be a packed house. You have the band, you have the music. That is huge. That just thinking about that, you can barely sleep. Going from that to a scrimmage, basically, to where it's just that team, our team, nothing's going to get me up for that. The level of play will be what it will be, but it will not be nowhere near as if you had a crowd there cheering you on. I mean, you make a big hit, you just basically have your teammates to cheer you on, but after a few series of that, it just will not be the same. Will I watch it? Of course I'll watch it. I'm dying for sports like anybody else, but it's just not the same when it comes from my little kid. Just think about the freshman who's going to start his first game, who all they've thought about for years is playing in the big arena with all the fans of their school they've dreamed of going to, and they get there and it's empty. That's like a nightmare. That's like a dream turned nightmare. And so I couldn't fathom playing in a crowd at the Carter with no fans. That to me, it will be heartbreaking to see.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree with you. As a fan, it's going to be interesting to see how it impacts, I should say, the intensity of the game.
Yeah, for sure.
As well, of any sport.
And
Yeah.
I think just athletes knowing that going into the game, it's for those people that depend on the fans, it's how am I going to get my energy level up before the game? What am I going to do differently, and have that routine planned ahead, so you're implementing that before you go out, so you can be in a different mindset, so you can perform like you normally would.
In the locker rooms I've been a part of, we won state titles in Louisville. We've won championships at TCU. And in order to do that, you have to have chemistry. I don't care what you say. And to me, there's no, one thing I can say, I've never experienced racism in sports, meaning with me. I've never, so I can understand some people saying in my profession, I haven't experienced racism. Well, in my locker room, in order to win, play at a high level, there's just, you would be outed for one. And you don't want that in a locker room with a bunch of guys. Black guys, white guys, of course, we had your own little cliques, you know, me and LT, and we roommated together with a couple of guys. We would sit over here, but we'd have some white guys over here, but they lived together. But when we got in a meeting, it was everybody just mixed in. Like, we were just one. When we traveled, we were one. When one got in a fight, we all got in a fight. That was the beauty of the locker room. Then you transition out of that, and you don't have that locker room setting, and you realize some things, like you just mentioned with the Floyd killing, happens. And then you have to realize, like, this stuff still exists, like it's really here. And one thing that I've told myself from now on, I will never sweep anything under the rug again. I know it's out there, I know it exists. I know a lot of my white buddies know it exists, but we all choose to sweep it under the rug. The problem is nobody wants to talk about it anymore. Well, today that's changed because of the killing of Floyd, Mr. Floyd. That's changed. If you guys are seeing in the streets now, you have a lot of my white brothers and sisters, they fed up. They're fed up too. It's like enough's enough. So they're out there protesting in numbers that has never been seen in protesting before, ever. And so if you go back to Martin Luther King, you would see a speckles of white folk, but not like today. This is history has been made already when it comes to just protesting. So that's a beautiful thing to see. Now, we got to keep in mind, it's been 400 years of this, though. So it's not going to happen overnight, but you have to have a starting point, and I'm okay with what I'm seeing as a starting point. And so for me, have I been racially profiled? Right here in South Lake, I live in Roanoke area, Alliance, Texas. I've been pulled over as of last year by a cop, and I was telling Nina and the FCA board, which I'm on, that I choose my vehicles based off of things that a black man will not be pulled over in. At the time I had an F-150, and not too many black men have that. Now I have a jacked up Chevrolet GMC Sierra, which is your typical white guy's truck, but I love the truck because I'm a country boy. I love the truck. But I choose those vehicles because the cops don't stereotype me in those trucks. But for the one time I did get pulled over, I had my windows down. I got pulled over. The officer said, I pulled you over because you had a broken taillight. And I believed him. I said, okay. He ran my plates and let me go on my way. I'm like, okay, fine. I head straight to AutoZone. I took his word. Straight to AutoZone, buy a light bulb, get home. I asked my daughter to come outside and tell me which light bulb is out so I can change it right then and there. She says, Dad, there's not one. I said, there is one. I just got pulled over. He told me what. I said, get in the driver's seat, push on the brakes. I go back. There's no lights out. There's no lights out. And then it hit me. Like this guy just pulled me over for no reason, just to run my identification to see if I had anything on me. And that's why he let me go. And so and that's a little simple story, but it's just the fact that this stuff still happens. This was just last year in the area where I live. And so to see the killings and stuff like that, enough is enough. And the beautiful, I'm gonna always err on the side of conscience of my Lord Jesus Christ, my Savior. Yes, we're all equal. Every life matters. Every single life matters. Jesus died on the cross for every last one of us, right? But when people say Black Lives Matter, that's just a movement. And I want to make this clear. If we all lived on the same street, we all have houses. Our houses matter. Yes, they do. Every one of our houses matter. But my house is on fire right now. My house is the only house that matters right now because at all our houses, mine's on fire. And I need your help putting it out. And so I need my white brothers and sisters to help us in the African American community by putting out the fire that's out there right now. And that's basically with police brutality and the losing of the lives that's coming month to month now, seems like, versus every other year, every day. And so that's what the movement's all about. And that's what it stands for. Nothing else, nothing more. All lives do matter. But right now, the lives that are on the fire, it's the African American community lives.
Wow. Thank you, Shannon, for enlightening us with that perspective. And it's equally disturbing for me personally to hear that story as well, that here we are in 2020, because I don't see it in my sheltered little world. So it saddens me actually to hear that story. But yeah, and it's still going on, and we got to change something.
How can we help as a white person? How can I help? How can we change that?
Great, and I'm glad you asked, Scott. First thing is listen. When there's a lot of times, and I've done it too, speak to some of my Caucasian brothers, and I'm like, this is what happened to me. This is what's happening, but they don't follow up on it or check into that story or really just open their heart and listen to what I just told them. What's crazy about this situation, I hate that it happened, but everybody in the world got to see a man literally in front of their eyes lose his life, yell out for his mama in his last plea to find out she was already in heaven, that he just was crying out for his mom because those were the last words that the man screamed out. And so now it has awakened everybody. So what I would ask my brothers and sisters of any race, but especially of the white race, use your voice. And that's why I mentioned earlier, I love the speaking out of it. I have more people on my social media page that are speaking out and that are all about Black Lives Matter or whatever the case. They're all about listening now and understanding. I've had several reach out to go to lunch. Several have reached out to just hear me. I didn't ask for them to call me, but they want to hear and ask me some questions. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sit down and I'm going to talk to them, and we're going to speak about it. Because from that conversation, I hope I touch their heart in some type of way to where they will never stop speaking on it. I mentioned we had 400 years of racism. It's not going away overnight, but we have to start by speaking about it, educating ourselves every single day. We cannot let it grow old anymore. That's what we always do, from death to death to death. We just get over, it happened, and we feel sorry for the moment, and then on to the next. We cannot afford to do that. That's you, that's me, all of us. We cannot afford to just let it fall to the wayside anymore. We have to vote. We have to come together and figure out who we're voting for and why we're voting for that person. As a race, as a United States that live on the same planet, everybody. And once those kind of things start happening, once everybody show up and hold hands and vote together and make change together, things will start to change. And I tell everybody, the Tom Brady's of the world, the Tom Hanks of the world, those people, come together with somebody that's equal power to you in your industry, that's a Black man, and speak on it. That's what needs to happen. Listening and also doing something as far as from an action standpoint, speaking out on it. That's the thing that could happen right now, is unity between the two races. That's the best thing that could happen.
That is happening, and that's what's so great to see right now, is there are conversations happening. There are organizations that are committed to this cause and taking action. And just this past week, the interim president at UT has talked with the students, the athletes, the staff, to say, what changes can we make to support the Black community? How can we change our campus? Let's start taking action. And I think after we listen and understand, I feel like we're moving forward with actions now as a nation. And that's what's really beautiful to see, is we are taking this seriously. And I think it's going to be really beneficial for the Black community to feel inclusive, to feel like we're all together in this. And, and Fellowship of Christian Athletes, we serve on the board together. We're creating a committee called the Diversity Committee to figure out how we can make everyone feel inclusive at FCA, how we can make the Black athletes feel inclusive and supported through FCA. So I think taking action is going to happen in the near future for the Black community.
Yeah. You know what, Nina? Absolutely. That's great to hear that action is being taken, and Shannon, these conversations are being held. Personally, I want to hear your thoughts on this, Nina. being a leadership type coach, working with a lot of coaches. I know my background, my field is leadership development as well. And I know that if I'm changing behaviors, I got to change a mindset. In order to change a mindset, I got to get to the core. And so there's a part of me that when I look at this from a leadership development standpoint, that the behaviors need to change. And I think it's the story that we're being told from generation to generation.
Absolutely.
The whites, parents being told about how to believe about, dark-skinned people, and dark-skinned people how to be told about what to believe about white people. And those stories, I believe, are what need to change in order for our behaviors to change. So what are your thoughts about getting to the real core cause of what's going on with this racism? How do we end it? Maybe not this generation, but possibly the next generation.
Well, one thing you mentioned, Angel, is just you talked about that coach-athlete relationship and how might that change. And I think coaches that really maybe might have dismissed that or not taken that seriously today, if they don't take that seriously, they're not going to have that relationship with the athlete, the Black athlete, which we mentioned in football, it's primarily African-American, but also in basketball. So I feel like they have a voice today. They have a strong voice, and they need to have that. And I love that Shannon says, I'm shoving it under the carpet. I want to talk about it. And I think that's so healthy for all the entire Black community to talk about it. And I think coaches now that dismissed it, if they dismiss it, they're not going to have that relationship with the athlete. They're not going to have a good cohesive team. So it's listening, talking, understanding, and taking action, which we talked about earlier.
Let's talk about some of the female Black athletes. You heard what Shannon had to say, and it made all the sense in the world. And yet, when I think of female athletes, and I think of some of the Black athletes, two of the greatest tennis players of all time, Serena and Venus Williams. So how about as African Americans? How about these athletes and what they go through?
Yeah, I think for all of us, it's really about making sure their voice is being heard, and that coach-athlete relationship for those athletes, that they have an outlet, that they can talk to somebody, they have a teammate. Going back to that survey that was surveyed 37,000 students that included men and women, and asking them questions about how they feel about everything. And one of the biggest things that helped them with their overall well-being is staying connected to their teammates and coach. So for those athletes, women or men, it's staying connected, knowing that they feel like they're included in some way and their feelings are validated. And that really comes from their teammates and their coach. The coach plays such a huge role on the mental health of an athlete. So I think for any of us, it's how is the coach going to respond? How are the teammates, the trainer, the strength and conditioning coach, how are they going to support the athlete right now? Because so many of them are dealing with anxiety and stress and fear. And speaking of the Black community, on that survey, 50% of the Black community, because they have been diagnosed with COVID, have a fear of getting it again. So they're dealing with a lot of fear, and they need people to reassure them that it is going to be okay. And that comes back to the coach and teammates and the support system they have in place.
Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world. Angel?
Well, let's go back out onto that field. And, you're sitting in the fans, like you said. I mean, if you're sitting in the stands as a fan, you're looking at the football players, all you see are the athletes, and you don't see skin color under the helmets. You see a team coming together, and Shannon, you talked about this earlier, that chemistry on the field. Everybody works hard, does their job. As a result, they are respected and trusted. And there's something that occurs in sports that if we could take that and translate it into life, it would be a wonderful world. What is it? What is it in that team dynamic that color does not exist? Can you maybe shine the light on what that chemistry is and how we get to take that chemistry into life so that we can all get along?
The best thing I can say about that is if people outside of the locker room, fans, in this case, Black and white, all races, can come together for one common goal on a team that's winning, outside of that sport, as we're talking about, all races, that's ending racism. That's winning. That's the goal. In sports, you train all year. It's off season. You watch a lot of film. You buy into the system. You buy into what the coaches are quote unquote selling, right? Well, you have a bad apple every once in a while. They don't buy in. They end up leaving and going to another school, and that's okay. But they don't interrupt what the goal is, which is winning the championship. That's the goal. If we all came together as a people, and our championship was ending racism, and you had a pure heart to end racism, and we keep speaking on it. We don't sweep anything up. We meet about it, like the FCA is doing, like I'm doing with Chief Knowles and the police, Fort Worth Police Department, and we just continue to meet, keep opening up those doors, keep educating, keep teaching, keep our hearts and minds open. The end goal, we will win, and that's ending racism. Yeah.
What has impressed me most in the midst of all of the accusations being tossed around from one side to the other, be it against the police, the looters, the rioting, whatever it might be, was a recent interview with a black actor and multi-Oscar winner. I'm talking about somebody I know you all know, Denzel Washington. Now listen up, listen to this. He talked about growing up as a black youngster with 3 other great buddies. He says, we were like one pea in the pod, all 4 of us, just everything we did together. They said, it didn't matter what it was, they were right there until they became teenagers. And he said, thankfully, his parents stepped in and kept him away from these other 3 fellas. They no longer were in contact with him. He said his buddies all came from single parent homes without a dad.
Right.
As a result, they got in a lot of trouble with the police. And I'm looking at what Denzel said. It said he felt much of that could have been avoided from that if there was a strong family structure with a father figure. He said that would have made all the difference in the world, and they wouldn't have been where they were. And then he went on to say that his 3 buddies have already, here in 2020, have already served over 40 years in the penitentiary. Yeah. And since statistically 4 out of every 5 black Americans have no father figure at home growing up with them now, that spells nothing but potential trouble, is what he said, if they're doing what they shouldn't be doing. So would you agree with Denzel? How much of a factor is that as we talk about what takes place in this? You know, how can we help change that dynamic?
I do agree. And I saw that interview with Denzel. And as I grew, my parents, they're divorced, but they was way after we were grown. And I think that helps, because what happens is, if you don't have the right role models in your life growing up as a youngster, and you just have a mom, for one, a woman's a woman. And when I say that, she can be the strongest thing in the world, but she's not a man. She doesn't know how to. Right. She'll do the best she can. She'll do, but working, and just, you know, there's going to be times she can't be there. There's going to be times where that young man grows up and he's as we say, smelling himself and listen to mom. Well, at that point, the percentages are high. I'm not going to say what those are because I don't know, but they're going to be leaning more toward the high side. But the streets will get that young man. And in the streets, as we all know, there's nothing good out there in the streets. As my mom used to tell her son, there's nothing open past 10 o'clock and none but trouble after 10:30 in the streets, you know? And so that's why the curfews were, you know, strong in my household until we got a little older. But the bottom line is the wrong people gets their hand on them. And that's one thing I like about even with some of the guys in sports is they get that daddy figure from coaches, and then the locker room is their brothers. Like we've all been around those type of guys. They come in ready to fight, ready to just prove their manhood because that's what they've had to do in the streets. And so, but when they get to us, we're like, listen, we're not here to fight you. We're here to fight with you on Saturday, on Sunday. You know, that's what we're here to do. And the coaches are the dads. We're the kids or the nephews, or how you want to look at it. We're going to make this thing work together. So at the end of the day, that's correct. That's true. I know some people that grew up with no dad or no mother, and things are just not peaches and cream in their lives, or never was. I know there's been some that get it right. They bump their heads on the wall, but they end up getting it right. So Denzel's spot on. You know, it works both ways. But to his point, there's nothing you can do at that point because a lot of those guys get into the system and all they know is repeat. So they get out, they do the same thing, they go back. They get out, that's what they know. I have people like that in my family. I know other people who have people like that in their family. It's just things didn't go right in their life. They didn't have a father figure. They didn't have something like that of a disciplinarian to hold on to.
Parenting is certainly the greatest form of leadership there is. I don't think there's a more important role on the planet than to impact the life of a child somehow. So I'm sure you've had, you've been referring to your coaches and all that. We're all being called to take a leadership role right now. And if we can influence our kids, share some positive things and maybe not make it about you're black or you're white and they're white and you're black, but maybe, hey, we're all out there running this human race and we're all trying to get it right. And, I say be aware of the stories that we're telling our kids and the belief that we've had or our parents had or our grandparents had that we're passing on to generation. But we've got to step up and take a leadership role here. But, Shannon, as we wrap things up, I would love to just hear some final thoughts. I mean, what's your takeaway here? I mean, if you're going to leave the audience with one thought, maybe it's a leadership tip that you learned along the way from a great coach. What can you leave? What's been most impactful to you that you can share with our audience today?
I would say this, no matter what's going on, how crazy this world is right now, and I know it's dark out there. I get it. For all of us, there's nothing pretty about today, but just understand that whatever your faith is, mine is, I believe in Jesus Christ. He has it all under control. That's how I can sleep at night, because we may not see it or understand, but there's a reason why. Just think about this. Just a month ago, we were all around the world, summoned in the house. Everybody get in and don't come out unless you're working. The world was shut down. Man's not that powerful, guys, ladies and gentlemen. Man's not that powerful. That comes from one up above who controls everything that goes on in this world. So if you don't think God's got his hands all over this movement and hearts are going to be open and things are going to be changed for the better of the people, you're mistaken, ladies and gentlemen. So that's what I would leave you. Whatever your faith is, lean into it right now, because at the end of the day, we got to have something to hold on to it. For me, I choose to hold on to that.
Yeah, it's like we've all been sent to our rooms to think about what we've done.
Exactly.
Let's get it right.
Exactly. We're all in trouble right now. We just got to get it right.
Yeah. Great point. Scott?
Well, I tell you what, I was going to ask the same question of Nina. I know all the things that you get a chance to be a part of, Nina, and let me just publicly say thank you to what you do, and also to Shannon. Thank you for your honesty today. This has really been incredibly eye-opening. And obviously, we talked about parents before. Obviously, you said your parents divorced, but after you were long gone. But they obviously did a pretty good job before they left, or before they separated. And you play to the point that it's so important to have that father figure that you just, especially for young black boys, it's just something they need growing up. And so I guess I'm gonna give the last word of the day to the good doctor. She's doing this every day, and I'm just kind of curious as to what you felt that we shared today. If you had a magic wand to wave over everybody, Nina. We've been through the pandemic. We continue the racial issues that we've been talking about. We see what happened to George Floyd and the gentleman down in Atlanta. We see all the stuff that's going on in almost a city within a city in Seattle. No police in that particular area. We just wonder all these different. This is the United States of America. I mean, let's return this country to the greatest country on the face of this earth. How do we do that? What do we do? What's that magic wand?
You know what? I think each one of us can make an impact today. And when we're confronted with something that's sensitive, conversation, anything, whatever that's going to trigger us in any way, let's respond with love. You know, they say, love thy neighbor. If we each responded with love, whether we agree or disagree, I think there would be a lot more peace and acceptance and understanding. And that's where the unity comes from. We have to treat each other with love and respect. And so I think we can all contribute to that. And I really do want to say something about what Shannon said in the Black community with the young. Many kids don't have a father figure. And I think team sports can make such a big difference. And I just really want to applaud coaches of all levels, because I don't think they get that kind of credit, and they work so hard, but they're so influential and on the Black community. And I think of LeBron James. He grew up with a single mom, but he had a phenomenal coach. He had phenomenal teammates that he's still friends with today, that he plays with. And it was attributed, I think, a lot to that coach that was such a phenomenal role model to him when he was in Cleveland, I think Akron, Ohio. So coaches make a big impact, but we all can by just responding with love and seeking understanding the best we can.
That certainly was a great call to action by Dr. Nina. Understanding and love. It doesn't really get any better than that as far as what we need in our world right now, and get through what we're all going through, this massive transformation we're all experiencing.
Yep.
So I so appreciated all the insights that both Dr. Nina and Shannon had to share today.
Kindness, courtesy, respect. And it's what we talk about each and every time we join you here on Leadership America. We're talking about civility, being that champion of civility and making a difference in the lives of those that need it most. And oh my gosh, you don't have to look far in this world right now to see lots of folks out there that need it most. So make a difference in their life, and we hope that you'll continue to be a part of our lives as we continue on in the weeks ahead with Leadership America. Our thanks to Shannon, and certainly our thanks to Dr. Nina. They were both rock stars personified, were they not?
It was so insightful. Great interview.
They
really enjoyed that.
So
Good
until
people.
next time, here on Leadership America, as we always remind you, live your life as a go-getter and share your life as a go-giver. Till next time, I'm Scott Murray.
And I'm Angel Carlton. And visit us at leadershipamerica.net. Bye for now.